Good morning, Doug.
Gimbal Productions. Keith does a nice job getting this ready every week. I do nothing. He takes the microphones out of the box. He gets the camera perfectly situated. Gimbal Productions is just one of the hats that Keith wears on top of running a business.
You know, I'm pretty good at getting the disclaimers up. I didn't change it this week. I thought you probably should be careful on the boat ramp again this
You
week.
really should.
Yeah. I did. I was watching videos last night with my son-in-law, Kevin. Kevin's a great man, and he just ready to find his first career, but he was showing me videos because they had the 80th anniversary of Normandy yesterday, and he was showing me videos a Army guy watches, and it was them dropping equipment from parachutes for test things, and some of the equipment was vehicles for which they didn't have the parachutes attached correctly, and they just
So when you count on the suspension parts, whoever built the suspension, you're counting on them that day.
and so that was some of my entertainment last night. We have such a big deal to thank those who've served us, I think, with the 80th anniversary of Normandy, and there was such a celebration going on over there this week, and some of those guys that were Navy SEALs and Rangers and guys were able to jump out of airplanes and land on the beach. I don't know if you saw any of that, but that was kind of a huge deal. And
if you ever want to check out some history, there's a boat in your hometown that I think people can go see.
It is a U.S., I forget the name of it. It's a landing ship tank, and the front end just pops down. They were designed not to return. They were one-way boats.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they were not.
That's intense.
Yeah, and so I think the only one left on the planet is in Evansville.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's a museum, and you can take tours of it if you like. But Evansville has a pretty colorful part of the history of World War II. They made airplanes down there, and they just Rosie the Riveters were pretty busy in Evansville.
Where's the best place to stay if you drive down to Evansville?
I am going down there Tuesday. I'm going to stay at the Hyatt Place downtown.
There you go. You can meet Keith at the Hyatt Place downtown Tuesday. He'll buy your coffee.
And you'll enjoy it. Go for a walk on the river. You'll enjoy it. It'll be a fun time. Doug, what is going on in your world today?
Life's great. Life's great. June might be my favorite month of the year. I've been thinking, what is my favorite month of the year? And it could very well be June, like July and August, but the kids are out of school. There just seems to be life happening. And you've got a lot of excitement personally that's just great. I was at the coffee shop today, and I saw this cool young couple having coffee together with their Ball State shirts on, and I just, me being the old guy, I was like, hey, tell me about your experience at Ball State. And they were so fun. They told me all about it. It's where one of my sons is going to go. And so it's just, there's a lot of newness happening right now.
I love that. It's new for us in that our kids came home from college and they're hanging out. We've got a bridal shower this weekend, and our driveway looked more like a used car lot than any time I can remember.
Just be careful going in reverse.
Oh.
That'd be my advice to you.
Oh, yeah, that Ultimate out there almost took the mirror out doing that recently. So I'm going to get me more in the center there. I like that better. I was feeling a little OCD there. I don't know. Yeah. So what else is going on that we need to know about?
Well, yeah, I think this week I was thinking about legacy type stuff, and it could be because my brother has or is part of a business called Legacy, and I was talking with him about making a difference and the impacts that we can have and all that stuff, and just thinking a little deeper about my family's legacy, and really when I start thinking that way, it starts with Grandpa George Warner Shreve, who was one of the greatest men to ever walk the planet. He passed away in 2009 at 86 years old. So he saw a lot. He did not participate uh, as a part of the fighting forces of the U.S. military during World War II. That was something that he wished he could have done, but he didn't qualify. And so he supported people in a different way during that time. But yeah, my grandpa, he was a real deal hero to me and to several people in our family.
We were, my son Caleb and I were having a lunch with your friend Christian yesterday, and he was pointing out the significance of generational involvement and the pros and cons of that, and really the decisions that say I make today will have an impact on humans. I won't know 100 years from now.
Right.
And that kind of goes along with investing, like the idea of having a compounded effect, realizing what I do can compound to something bigger than what I started with. It's a little bit of a longer term approach, but thinking about that has been one of the driving forces for me over the years.
Yeah, we see that every day. I mean, my grandfather had 3 boys. Caroline and I have 4 boys. And so I just often think back and wonder, okay, what was it like for him? And this is a guy, I love someone who just completely flips the switch and moves from one thing to another. And this was a guy who worked on the railroad, and he really wasn't a railroad kind of guy. I mean, railroad guys were tough and they got dirty and all this stuff. And my grandpa was more of like a people person, friendly, and just everybody's best buddy type guy. And so that early career in the railroad, he had to make a switch, and he made that switch to start working for a family business. And so I think to have the courage to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, what potential effect does this have on my life? And then how am I going to have an effect on somebody else? It probably means having some courage and getting that in line with what you want to do in your life.
Do you think people are apt today, when they're kind of looking at their phones all the time, to even think real long term
You
anymore?
mean like you were just looking
I
at?
was trying to work on our system there, and I was just thinking as you were talking, like, huh, can I think beyond this thing?
I don't know. I don't. Maybe the studies will have some results on that someday. Maybe
Yeah.
they already do. I
Well, can't think of the Washington Post TV critic that he talked about when Connie and I were young parents, of how Hollywood and in the movies and things were trying to break down the attention span of children, and the number of camera angles on the kids programming would change every like 30 seconds, versus the adults couldn't handle that. Like that would just be too much action. And so I think there's been an intentional process to break down attention span over the years. And I think to have long-term thoughts, a lot of times it requires attention.
Yeah, you gotta take a pause
Yeah,
and reflect. Yeah.
yeah. And so wonder how you help build that back with people, help them to step back
I think the best way to do that is FaceTime, not FaceTime on whatever Meta's platform is, or but true eyeball to eyeball time together. And that doesn't have to look like a meeting around a conference table. It can, but it might be having a coffee or doing something that someone else likes to do. And you meet someone in their space, in their arena, but it's going to be eyeball to eyeball time is the best way to get that done.
And I've really been really intentional the last probably 90, 100 days at spending time just pondering good questions to have better eyeball to eyeball time.
What's that guy's name? Fussman.
Oh, Cal Fussman.
Cal Fussman. Yeah. Yeah, boy, that guy was the best at questions.
The question I've been asking, we used it. We had a bunch of people around the dinner table this week, and the question I asked is, "Tell me about your best bicycle wreck." And that just brought out some really good conversations, and that question helps me understand the history of the risk taking somebody might take. Like,
Do you have a good bicycle wreck?
I have many good bicycle wrecks.
Do you have like this is the best bicycle wreck?
I have so many really good ones that they all are worthwhile. Like,
They're all the best.
they're all just like
That's like Amanda's friends. They're all her best friends.
exactly. So yeah, uh, I just told I was telling our friend Matt a while ago that I bought at Gillis, not Gillis, it wasn't Gillis, I don't remember who it was now. Schwinn Cyclery in Evansville. I bought my first 10 speed and I would just crank that thing as fast as I could, and my um shoelaces got caught in the sprocket and locked it up on a dime. And we didn't have helmets back then, and I just hit on the pavement, got a free ride from my parents to the hospital, and just could, I almost went blind. Like I just couldn't literally see it hit so hard. So I'm assuming that was a concussion protocol. So
We had a good bicycle wreck this week. Colton has a broken arm because of it. But if you want to hear the best bicycle wreck story in the office, it belongs to Libby, and I can't share it with you. You got to call her and ask her about it. But it's bad.
wow. Wow. I like it. I like it a lot. Well, what else do we need to know about your grandpa?
Well, you probably need to know, for those of you who are watching this at whatever time you're watching this, maybe you're watching this just before Christmas, or maybe you're watching this right now. You're going to have a legacy. You've really built it already. It's happening. It's in motion, and it's really special. It has a great impact on people. So much so that someone might name their kid after you, or they might be inspired to do life differently. They might be inspired to leave their career path and start up something else. They might be inspired of how you handled your life. You know, my grandfather and grandmother, they owned 5 hair salons at one point in time. And my grandfather, he was a real teacher. He could say, I can equip anybody. This is not a direct quote, but he'd say, I can equip anybody to learn the skill set of cutting hair and being a hairstylist.
Wow.
But that's what he'd say, and I believe him. But he would say, I can't help anybody learn a good attitude.
Do you think somebody can teach themselves a better attitude? What's your opinion on that?
I don't know how well people change. That's something I've been wondering lately. Can people change?
Yeah.
But yes, I think a person can look themselves in the mirror and with some guidance from God, pivot and start looking at the world a little differently.
Yeah. I think where I've been spending a lot of brain time in regards to that is there's an old saying, as a man thinks, so he is. And so your attitude, I think, has a lot to do with what you choose to set your mind on and what you think about it. And so I believe you can change your attitudes, but you have to change the input that's coming in.
Yeah.
And if you don't change the input, I don't think anything's changing. I think if you keep getting your input from the same sources, and changing the input can be some of life's hardest decisions. Like you may have to get certain things out of your life that you like, and that might include human beings that you have spent a lot of time with. But unfortunately, sometimes that can add to the attitudinal thing.
Our friend Don Wood, who passed away a few years ago, Keith and I went up to Northern Indiana to meet this guy. Well, he was great. He's kind of like Colonel Sanders. He reinvented himself in his late 60s, and he had a little rock outside of his building that says attitude is everything. Do you remember that?
I do. I love it. And really, I think that's part of that idea is you're probably the average of the 5 closest people to you.
That's right.
And so if you are sensing your attitude needs some improvement, you may need to replace one of those 5 with somebody with a good attitude. And that's probably for parents of teenagers. You know, if pre-teenagers may be more important, where they may listen to you, the importance of that, but
So you can talk about your phone, you could switch up 5 people, you can switch up 5 people you're following on Twitter. Like you fire 5 and pick up 5 new ones, and you know, those people with great attitude or good outlook on the world, a realistic outlook on the world, might become the change agent for you.
and I don't think it's ever too late, like you could choose. I think I mentioned this book before. One of my favorite books that's impacted me is the Balcony People. And so you could choose.
I don't think you've mentioned that one.
Yeah.
Give me your pen there.
Yeah. You could choose to help change somebody else's attitude by putting yourself in their world. That is probably one of the life's greatest labors of love, to inject yourself into somebody else's world. But by intentionally being in their world, you could make yourself one of their 5, which would have a big impact on their particular personality.
We had a client stop by, who's waiting for me in the parking lot last week when I came here from lunch. And I told him, I said, were you on the show this morning? Did you have your pen out writing down what Keith told you? So this is the second week in a row I've actually written down something that Keith says. But last week was when a high energy impulse hits your head, do it. And so that good thought process, that good thought life, when it hits your head, and it's something really positive, go for it. That's an attitude difference. And then the Balcony People, I wrote that one down. I'll have to check that out. But anyway, yeah, Grandpa George, man, what a legacy. And my grandpa was not good with money. He was just not good, but he was really gifted with enjoying people and treating people like they mattered, and giving them experiences that were unbelievable. And as a grandson, I had a couple really great experiences, and the 2 that are just complete highlights are, he knew my friends' names, he knew them, and my friends knew him. And that's true for high school friends and my college friends. How special is that your college friends know your grandma and grandpa? And do you know how they did it?
No.
Ham and cheese, Ruffles chips, and Coke. That's how they did it.
Didn't cost much to entertain those boys.
No.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have as much time to prepare about the influence of my grandfathers, but I think my conversation with Christian yesterday, some other events going on in life, I've really pondered the idea of generational influence for a long time, like probably 30+ years. I've considered it, and probably part of it, I'll share a screen with you here. I'm not a big asset, like physical asset guy that's got to have a lot of stuff. So this was one of the things I inherited from my mom's parents. This was my grandfather on her side's last pack of cigarettes, February 5th,
Soft pack.
1964, and it has the word stop written on it. So February the 5th, so what is that, 60 years ago? This year, he stopped smoking, probably filterless would be my guess.
No, those were exclusive Mike Burnett filters.
Oh, they had filters.
I mean, that was
Man.
new. I mean,
Yeah, he was winding down the filterless thing.
King size.
Yeah. So these cigarettes have been rode hard and put out wet, and he put them in his pocket.
Did he carry those with him?
So that when he reached for them, he remembered that he stopped smoking on that day. He not only stopped smoking that day, he stopped drinking that day. I would have been 2.5 years old when he did that. I heard these stories about him from prior days to that, and those stories weren't really the most positive stories one would ever know, but he was able to restart his future on that day, February 4th. And so by the time I was of age to even know him, I didn't know that history other than the stories but unfortunately you can't redo the damage you've done, right? And so what I learned from Grandpa Ewens was the possibility of new beginnings. And that's why I kept that pack of cigarettes, because everybody screws up their past, and they have the choice, I think, of bringing in a new influence for a new start. So he impacted me that way. He started a grocery store in the inner city when nobody would do that. Like the racism people talk about today is nothing compared to the 1940s when he moved his family into the inner city and opened a grocery store. The only white people really there would have been his wife, and my aunt, and my mom, and so they did that, and so it influenced me towards racial issues from the time I was knee high because it just wasn't part of our family. Yeah, so that was Grandpa Hewins, and then this
Sounds like a cool guy.
yeah, and so I spent a lot of time with Grandpa Hewins. Grandpa Tyner, I didn't get nearly as much time with him, and I found this year. This was his last letterhead as a life insurance $250,000 club.
That's big.
That's inflation. I don't even know what the club is today. Do you? It used to be $1 million.
5 million.
I don't know.
I have no
I don't
idea.
know. Yeah, he was a $250,000 club, and I knew that he liked to do woodworking. I didn't get to know him very well because we didn't live close together. Phone calls were expensive in the day.
Yeah, right.
And for some reason, we didn't travel back and forth much. But I found this sometime in the last 100 days and sent it to my son, who never got to meet his grandpa. Like he met my dad, but he was not old enough to even know he met him. My son was born on his grandpa's last birthday. Did you know that? June 20th? And so I sent this to Caleb to have a conversation with him because my son likes woodworking, and this was the plans for a woodworking project that my great-grandfather and my grandfather and my dad both were woodworkers. I wasn't. And so I sent this to Caleb while he was in school this semester and asked him what he thinks about this and what he can tell me about his great-grandfather from this that he maybe never knew about his great-grandfather. And so it was a glimpse into the mind of my grandfather to my son and to me finding this thing.
You know what I just noticed? That's not graph paper, but he made it graph paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And so
I don't know those boxes. How did
Yeah.
he do that's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, well, the other thing about both of my grandfathers is they came of age during the Great Depression, right? Like, so I don't even know what that means. Like that, I know it was like to feel the pressure as a dad.
It means if you don't have graph paper, you make graph paper.
Right. And so there's maybe drinking or other problems they had were their way of coping with difficulties that I don't know anything about, right? Like, and so I try not to have any judgment towards my what do you call it, your heritage, because I don't know what got them to the place they were in. Right. And so that process of trying to think, well, what would it have been like growing up when you had no money? How scary would that be? How would you navigate it? You know, he came to life like he was an adult during the Depression, then he was middle-aged during World War II. Could you imagine all that calamity going on in your life? And so he was a quiet man. And those things would probably make you quiet, I would think. And so that was interesting to me to kind of think about what he taught me and how some of these things are generational. Like Caleb likes woodworking, and I never taught it to him, but it's instinctively got there for him. And so I think the good thing about generational opportunities is you don't have to embrace the bad things and you can embrace the good things. It's your choice. You have a great capacity to be a seed to the future, I think.
Yeah. You got that great capacity this weekend.
Absolutely. So this is like, you didn't know I was doing this, but I was listening to a podcast about these ideas yesterday while I was going through the woods, and the fellow that was speaking had a worst case childhood. He didn't get his stuff burnt. You told me somebody that had their stuff burnt, but it was close. It was that kind of thing. And as he became a man of faith, his mom renamed him after one of her boyfriends. That's part of his heritage. And the man who he was renamed after abused him. So every time he used his name, he had to think of the guy that abused him, right? And so then he became a man of faith, and he said, I just couldn't understand how you honor your mother and father. And then he said he finally got the answer. I don't even know if I'll be able to get this out. He said the way to honor that man was to give him a great son.
Wow. Okay.
How intense is that?
That's thinking differently.
Yeah. And so we all, no matter what our heritage
Yeah.
is or has been, we have that potential to give the people before us a great child or
And to
grandchild.
break the flow, break the stream.
Yeah. Everybody has that choice. Today's the day.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. We use 90% of our time. Do you want to talk market, or do you want to skip that for next time?
I will skip it for next time. Here's what you need to know. Market's been looking pretty good. And I'm not sure what to expect in the future. Either is Keith. But we know this, that the market has been telling us that there's been strength. I think there's been some optimism that we could be getting closer to some type of rate cuts or maybe more rate pauses. But hey, we're just going to listen to the market. And there are areas of the market that have been very encouraging. And so I'm pleased about that. On the defensive side, though, we want to be ready for the opposite side of the trade. And the best way that we can do that is to make sure that we have ideal stops set for our investments that we have.
I think just understanding risk, not only on your investments, but in life, allows you to live better. Like, I think understanding the risk when you're investing allows you to invest more aggressively. Understanding risk in the unknown future allows you to live more fully today. So risk is there. Whether you choose to accept it or not is your choice, but we want to encourage you to live life fully this weekend and into the future.
And when you do flip over the handlebars, it's an opportunity for your friends to sign your cast.
And smile and have a story. You've got a story for the rest of your life. We'll see you guys soon.